So, we want to welcome our audience to this conversation that I'm having with my friend here, Hershell Norwood, and we're going to have a conversation about the history of Black theater in America. I am a local theater director here in Eugene, and I am also an actor, and I'm a pianist, and I'm one of the co-founders of Minority Voices Theater, which is a part of the Very Little Theater here in Eugene. So Hershell is a local theater person as well. He is an actor, he is a director, and most importantly, he is a playwright. And I think you're working on a book right now. I know you wrote a play some time ago because I read in that play reading the role of Paul Robeson. The tallest tree, I think, was the title of your play. And you might want to tell us a little bit about the book that you're now putting together.
Well, the book is an idea that grew out of the graduate work and so on, and thesis work or dissertation work, and it's about what I found was a difficulty in Black research, for Black theater research, which was to determine a Black aesthetic. So, Black aesthetic is just simply anything that benefits or pleases Black culture and Black individuals, African American culture.
Right.
So it's not really complicated, but it is a subject that is ongoing, and so whatever research or whatever my contribution is I can make to it, I'm willing to do that because the problem is still there. Black interest, basically.
Right.
And equal rights, I guess, when you get right down to the bottom. But that's what I'm working on. I'm using the Harlem Renaissance as a framework.
And we'll talk about the Harlem Renaissance after a while. Yeah,
that's
great.
Other than that, I'd like to kind of, I guess in a simple sentence, it would be trying to determine a philosophy on which to base the play about Paul Robeson. I never could get the rewrite quite the way I wanted it because I couldn't figure out exactly what was my stance in this, type of thing. So this is the reason for pursuing the book.
Yeah, it's quite a process. Well, we'll be looking forward to that book when it comes out. It's going to be published. I know it.
I hope so.
So now we're going to get started, I guess, on talking about African American theater. And I've always heard that African American theater had a kind of a double beginning. We know that on the plantations during the time of slavery, that Black people performed for the white masters.
Sure.
There were skits, there were songs, there were dances, there were all of these little things.
Shouts.
That's right. And the ring shouts came a lot from religion, I suppose.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so, when we can't get into a lot of detail, but I thought maybe we might talk a little bit about minstrels. And you might want to mention which.
Well, it's a very simple structure. If you think about the 1800s, the 19th century, the biggest thing that happened in the country was the Civil War, right in the middle somewhere. So that kind of dictated our entire history. We're still dealing with the aftermath of it. We can get into that for days, I think. But if you look at the way the minstrel period is structured, it was 1850, before 1850, and after. And what was the problem was the whether the country should expand into slavery. So the characters on the stage, on the minstrel stage, before 1850, they were more positive the images were more positive. That is, they were happy on the plantation. They promoted. They also talked about the atrocities of slavery itself. After that point, as that topic heated up and it became more political, whether the North, whether we were going to follow the business model of the North, the industry, or the business model of the plantation aristocracy, and the Civil War heated up, those characters turned grotesque on stage, and the material was the brute and the unhappy free slave and all the different characters, a Jim Crow character and Zip Coon and so on. So that's a basic framework.
Yeah, and we have to remember they were playing these. When we first see these minstrels, they're white people playing them in blackface.
Absolutely.
And with black cork rubbed on the face. And a little bit later on, black actors decided, there was another way to make some money because white people like to see the minstrels in blackface. And so even black people started, black actors started putting on the blackface.
As you mentioned earlier, in order for black people to come to the stage, they wanted to play as well. Whether free or slave, they wanted to play on the stage and perform too. In order to come on stage, they had to don the blackface.
Yeah, that's right.
It's an ultimate irony, but a lot of that was all that they could do.
And of course, the Tom shows became very popular. The biggest one, of course, being Uncle Tom's Cabin, and that became a very popular stage production that went all around the country. Actually, that was a kind of a touring production
for a long, long time.
Yeah, and it's interesting because she was writing anti-slavery, Harriet Beecher Stowe, writing anti-slavery, but at the same time, the stereotypes were being perpetuated, and so there was some conflict there.
It's ironic to me that, like you say, it started out with the best intention, being anti-slave, but it got mixed up with the politics and became something else. Became more of a negative image, and because its popularity was unmistakable.
That's right. And then we move forward, and we have the beginnings of the African Grove Theater.
Yes.
And now we're getting into some real differences in productions and in characters and all of those kinds of things.
That with the African Grove and with theater that followed after that, the biggest problem was to change that stereotype, that blackface. I mean, we were looking at that effort right through the 20th century. But the very first serious theater, as you say, the African Grove, it really was unique in that it was started in I think it was a cafe or that sort of thing, a little small room.
Yeah.
But it attracted so much attention from both black and white, free blacks and even slaves, but the white population in New York. I mean, and they also had some high level quality performances.
Yeah.
I mean, it
definitely
competed with. They had the audacity to do Richard III.
Oh yeah, lots of Shakespeare. They did lots of Shakespeare. It was very interesting, and I kind of remember reading about them moving when they moved from where they first were to another section in New York. They were all in New York. They moved right across the street from a white theater called the Park Theater, and there was a Mr. Price there, and Mr. Price was running the park. He was the artistic director of the Park Theater, and they were doing Richard III also.
In English
And
production is
the-
burlesque.
and the Negro company, the African Grove Theater across the street from them was doing Richard III at the same time.
Sure.
And of course, Mr. Price,
But popular. You gotta
Yeah,
say that was
that's
the
right.
problem.
That's right. And Mr. Price got very, very angry, and he contacted the officials, and he made up all kinds of stories about the
That
African
City Hall.
company.
Got City Hall
And-
involved with it.
And finally, they were shut down. They were destroyed.
Not right away though.
No, they existed for a while,
Yeah.
but they were destroyed. And out of that came, of course, what we consider the first written African American play. However, there are no copies of that play that exist today, and I think that play was called King Shot Away.
Oh yeah.
King
Yeah.
Shot Away.
Yeah.
No copies of it exist.
Yeah, I'd forgotten all about that. I think you're right about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so then, of course, we've got other companies slowly coming to light, and we get William Wells Brown, who wrote a play called The Escape, or we call it A Leap to Freedom, and this is a play about two slaves from different plantations who end up on the same plantation at some point. And they are, they anger they anger the mistress, because I think the master was trying to have a relationship with the black woman, the black slave, and the mistress was not happy, and so the mistress wanted that woman to be sold, and they decided that conditions were really bad for them, and so they decided that they would run away, those two slaves, and they would run away north. Of course, north was the position of the Underground Railroad later on, and so they were headed up to Canada, where
Ohio River and Mississippi River, and then over to Canada.
And so we have a clip actually from The Escape that we found, and we'd like to play that clip for you right now. And it is the scene where the two lovers are meeting. The male slave is waiting at the time for his lover to meet him.
Notice the language; it's almost poetic.
Yeah, let's watch it.
How slowly the time passes away. I've been waiting here 2 hours and Melinda has not yet come. What keeps her? I cannot tell. And I waited long and late for her last night. And when she approached, I sprang to my feet, caught her in my arms, pressed her to my heart, and kissed away the tears from her moistened cheeks. She placed her trembling hands in mine and said, "Glenn, I am yours, and I will never be the wife of another." I clasped her to my bosom and called God to witness that I will ever regard her as my wife. Old Uncle Joseph joined us in holy wedlock by moonlight. And that was the only marriage ceremony. I look upon the vow as ever binding on me, for I am sure that a just God will sanction our union in heaven. Still, this This man who claims Melinda as his property is unwilling for me to marry the woman of my choice because he wants her himself. But he shall not have her. What he will say when he finds that we are married, I cannot tell, but I am determined to protect my wife or die. Here comes Melinda. I'm glad to see you, Melinda. I've been waiting long and feared you would not come. In tears again.
Glenn, you are always thinking I'm in tears. But what did Master say to you today?
Oh, he again forbade our union.
Indeed? Can he be so cruel?
Yes, he can be just so cruel.
Alas, how unfeeling and heartless. But did you appeal to his generosity?
Yes, I did. I used all the persuasive powers that I was master of, but to no purpose. It was inflexible. He even offered me a new suit of clothes if I would give you up. And when I told him that I could not, he said he would flog me to death if I ever spoke to you again.
And what did you say to him?
Well, I answered that while I loved life better than death, even life itself could not tempt me to consent to a separation that would make life an unchanging curse. Oh, I would kill myself, Melinda, if I thought that for the sake of life I could consent to your degradation. No. Melinda, I can die, but shall never live to see you the mistress of another man. But, my dear girl, I have a secret to tell you, and no one must know it but you. I will go out and see that no person is within hearing. I will be back soon.
It is often said that the darkest hour of night precedes the dawn. It is ever thus with the vicissitude of human suffering. After the soul has reached the lowest depths of despair and can no deeper plunge amid its rolling folded shades, then the reactionary forces of man's nature begin to operate. Resolution takes place of despondency, energy succeeds instead of apathy, and an upward tendency is felt and exhibited. Men then hope against power and smile in defiance of despair. I shall never forget when I first saw Glenn. It is now more than a year since he came here with his master, Mr. Hamilton. It was a glorious moonlight night in autumn. The wide and fruitful face of nature was silent and buried in repose. The tall trees on the borders of Muddy Creek waved their leafy branches in the breeze which was wafted from afar, refreshing over hill and vale, over the rippling water and the waving corn and wheat fields. The starry sky was studded over with a few light flitting clouds, while the moon, as if rejoicing to witness the meetings of two hearts that should be cemented by the purest love, sailed triumphantly along among the shifting vapors. Oh, how happy I have been in my acquaintance with Glenn. That he loves me, I do well believe it. That I love him, it is most true. Oh, how I would that those who think the slave incapable of finer feelings could only see our hearts and learn our thoughts. Thoughts we dare not utter in the presence of our masters. But I fear that Glenn will be separated from me, for there is nothing too base and mean for master to do for the purpose of getting me entirely in his power. But thanks to heaven, he does not own Glenn and therefore cannot sell him. Yet he might purchase him from his brother-in-law so as to send him out of the way. But here comes my husband.
I've been as far as the overseer's house, and all is quiet. Now, Melinda, as you are my wife, I will confide to you a secret. I've long been thinking of making my escape to Canada and taking you with me. It is true that I don't belong to your master, but he might buy me from Hamilton and then sell me out of the neighborhood.
But we could never succeed in an attempt to escape.
We will make the trial and show that we at least deserve success. There is a slave trader expected here next week, and Dr. Gaines would sell you at once if he knew that we were married. We must get ready and start. And if we can pass the Ohio River, we'll be safe on the road to Canada.
Okay, so now that was a really good clip,
Yes.
and it's an interesting play.
Yeah, I like the actors who did the parts.
Yeah, I thought of course, the opening monologue is very, very long, and it's kind of interesting for a play that early on to have such long
You mentioned
monologues.
that it was a first serious play, and you got to remember we mentioned the Blackface and Minstrelsy. Minstrelsy was happening all around the time of this play, so
That's right.
So it's a curious kind of thing and it was a serious drama, and Minstrel stage was growing at that time from say just the 8 or 9 people on the stage to these big extravaganza type of things. It was really becoming popular and making money, and lots of people were jumping in on it. Even at the end of the period, black managers were allowed in some cases. But this play, the Leap to Freedom, happened right in the middle of all of it.
That's right.
Yeah. So
That's right.
interesting.
Well, we're going to leap on to I think the 20s and the 40s, the time of the Harlem Renaissance, and I know you've been doing some work about that, and you might want to talk a little bit about the Harlem Renaissance plays.
Well, it's the time when most people think of the Harlem Renaissance as a time of rebirth for the arts and poetry and fiction and that sort of thing. But there was a great deal that happened in theater. And for instance, during that period of time, I focused on the serious plays that were on Broadway or off Broadway. And at the time, I think there was 13 plays in that 20-year period, and of serious drama, like The Leap to Freedom. And I think the very first one was the Theodore Wharton you had mentioned earlier.
Right.
The Fog. That was
and Our Land and the Fog. Yes.
Yeah, and it was the first serious drama, even though it was a one act on Broadway or off Broadway. That one. But the 3 plays that I use to try and find elements of black cultural, black aesthetic type of thing is the 3 most successful full lengths. And that was in 1925, Garland Anderson's appearances. 1935, during the WPA period and Depression, was Langston Hughes' Mulatto. And in 1941, just after we got into the war, is Richard Wright's Native Son. And those are the three big ones that were most popular during that period.
Sure. And as we know, there were a lot of writers, black writers, writing during that period. Men and women. I think one of the most prominent women writers was Zora Neale Hurston, writing during that period. And she wrote a few plays as well as novels.
Right.
So, it was a very, when we say a renaissance, it was a real awakening. Yes, it really was.
Most people think of it as poetry and novels and fiction.
Right, right.
There's a lot of theater.
Yeah, wow. And at the same time, we've got a number of these black musicals that started appearing on Broadway.
Absolutely. Abyssinia, Shuffle Along.
Yep.
Some of the, there are a number of them. It's really, really great.
And while we're talking about all of this, we have to remember that most of black theater in America was about who is going to control the black image. And I think that has always been the issue about black theater in America, is who is going to control the image of the black man. And I think that, it gets really tough. We can jump now into the 1950s.
Well, let me just comment on one thing.
Sure.
Because you say that it was tough on black men particularly. Well, the blackface was still being used during the Harlem Renaissance, during those musicals. Shuffle Along and so on. And the first, before the Harlem Renaissance, like Abyssinia and Trip to Coontown, that sort of thing, there were, blackface being used right on Broadway. So it was an accepted kind of thing. It didn't really leave. Really leave at all. I think the first talking movie, what was it, Al Jolson, blackface, it was still accepted. So,
yeah, that's exactly right.
The problem has been the black artist who's coming to the stage has to take that image, that blackface, and change it. And so that's been the process that's happening that leads us up to where you now mentioned the 50s.
Yeah,
We're still fighting
and
against
by the 50s, things were heating up a little bit more in America.
Yes.
1954, Emmett Till is murdered, and it starts the civil rights movement. Then we have, of course,
well, it's Brown versus Board
that's right.
that gets things started.
Brown versus Board of Education, and we have Miss Rosa Parks not giving up her seat on the bus, and Martin Luther King coming. And so in the 50s, the plays were addressing some of these issues of discrimination against the Negro. And so we get this powerful play in the 1950s, about 1959, A Raisin in the Sun, by Lorraine Hansberry. And let me just say, it was the first black woman to have a play produced on Broadway, the first black theater director from Yale, Mr. Lloyd Richards, that's right. And the first time we get a real sense of what the black family is like on the American stage.
Yes, exactly.
But that was met with a lot of controversy because what Lorraine Hansberry's play preached was integration.
Yes, and that blacks are worthy of respect, and we can move into the neighborhoods, the suburban neighborhoods, and be just as respectful as anyone else.
Right.
And demand it.
And Ms. Hansberry was writing about her life in Chicago, basically in this play, because her family had experienced some of the same discrimination that this family was getting ready to move into, by buying this house. But it's also, Lorraine Hansberry's play was also about a conflict between members of the family and what their goals were in life.
Very realistic in that sense. The different goals of individuals in there. The sister wanting to be more, she had one idea, and then the older brother had a totally different idea. He wanted something in
Yes,
the neighborhood,
that's
a
right.
store business of some sort.
Yeah, that's
Right.
exactly right. And so
We have a clip.
yeah, we're going to watch a clip. That's right. We're going to watch a clip. And in this particular clip, Walter Lee, who is the son, is trying to convince his wife that it is important that his dream be realized. And, you know, and he, you know, he's upset because all she can do is say, eat your eggs, Walter Lee, eat your eggs. And so he gives us this wonderful, wonderful scene where he's trying to explain to his wife how important his dream is. And his dream, of course, is to take some of the money that comes from his father's insurance after the father has passed away and use some of that money to open up a liquor store. And of course, the mother is opposed to that. The wife doesn't think it's a good idea. Nobody thinks it's a good idea in this family. And he's also cutting into other people's goals for this money. But it's also about his struggles to really become a man. And that they don't let him become a man much in this household.
True.
But it ends on a good note where the mother decides, okay, Walter Lee, you're going to be the man of this house. I'm putting everything in your hands. And I think it ends on a good note. So we're going to watch this clip right now of A Raisin in the Sun.
Yeah. You see this little liquor store cost $75,000. We figured the initial investment on the place be about $30,000. See, $10,000 each. Now, of course, there's a couple hundred you got to pay so you don't spend your life waiting for them clowns to get your license approved.
You mean graft?
Don't call it that. See, that just goes to show you what women understand about the world. Baby, don't nothing happen for you in this world unless you pay somebody off.
Walter, leave me alone. Eat your eggs, they're gonna be cold.
You see that? Man says to his woman, I got me a dream. His woman say, eat your eggs. Man say, I got to take hold of this here world, baby. And the woman will say, eat your eggs and go to work. Man say, I got to change my life. I'm choking to death, baby. His woman say, your eggs is getting cold.
Walter, that ain't none of our money.
This morning, I was looking in the mirror and thinking about it. I'm 35 years old. I've been married 11 years and I got a boy who sleeps in the living room. And all I got to give him is nothing but stories about how rich white people live.
Eat your eggs, Walter.
Damn my eggs. Damn all the eggs that ever was.
Then go to work.
Okay, so Raisin in the Sun, kind of a mild play, huh? You know, mild play. I mean, and I say pretty mild play because there's no real violence in the play itself.
But the period of time, there were, certain black groups had a different approach to civil rights. Completely opposite of view. So, and people say preach violence, but I think more the language was violent than actual violence. So we have another play example, the Dutchman. Leroy Jones, the Dutchman.
That's right. And that takes us into the 60s now, and we're getting a little bit more violent.
Well, it's a black arts movement combined with Black Power, and the and using of theater was again known as Leroy Jones, then Amiri Baraka, was the ideal according to Larry Neal. Larry Neal is considered the first one to coin the phrase black aesthetic or black aesthetic and using black power as a part of it. But the political point of view was they insisted that black oppression be front and center, as opposed to hiding under the rug or please the white middle class audience and don't give them anything that's going to make them feel bad or think negatively about themselves, feel guilty about. And Black Power image and the Black Arts movement said no, this is real. This is real. Black oppression should be in your face. You should understand it, type of thing. But this said a little more forcefully than that.
Yeah, this was a time Malcolm X. And,
Yes.
Yes. By any means necessary.
Right.
What does that mean? That could mean a whole lot of things. And I suppose this is where there was a lot of conflict in the Black community, because there were those who followed Martin Luther King's idea that we do things in a nonviolent way.
Right.
But then there were those who were following Malcolm X, who say, well, by any means necessary.
Or some elements of the Black Panthers.
That's right.
You could blame both sides. There was a recent movie about Fred Hampton, and that was very true.
That's right.
There was the Chicago police.
What, the Chicago 7 or something? A movie that came out recently about all of that. Yeah. So the Black arts movement became very popular during that period. I remember being at Dillard University, and we had to perform in the city of New Orleans for a Black theater called the Dashiki Project Theater, which our director at Dillard University had founded. And so we were doing quite a few Black plays that were written by some of these very forceful Black playwrights of that period.
Did you do the Dutchman?
Ed Bullins, Leroy Jones, quite a few people, quite a few plays we did. We did other plays as well, but those were the main plays.
Right.
We even did a play by Jean Genet, if you can believe, The Blacks, which was very, very popular at the time. I don't know how that would play today, how that show would play today, but that show was on Broadway or off Broadway for a long time, starring Cicely Tyson, James Earl Jones, very prominent Black actors were performing in that play. So we know that became a very important play, even though it's written by a white playwright. But I think one of the most important plays of the period was Dutchman by Leroy Jones. And Dutchman is about two people, Black man and white woman, who meet on a subway.
Right.
And
I was in the play. I acted in the play.
Oh, great! Wow. That's a wonderful play. And it's a little hard to take sometimes, because it does end in violence.
Right. But Amiri does something different. He switches he makes the antagonist the white woman.
That's right.
And she was portrayed. She was blonde, blue-eyed, and totally socially acceptable and from the middle class. But she was the antagonist in this.
That's right.
And she's the one that drove the action to violence.
She taught him. She taunts him a lot in this play. In the beginning of the play, she comes on. She's eating an apple, and a lot of people thought Adam and Eve. Eve tempting Adam. And so she's eating this apple, and she's just taunting him. And what she does is she tries to make him accept the fact that he is nothing more than a stereotype of Black men, and she wants him to accept that about himself.
With black, painted over. I mean, basically, she's attacking him for not being Black enough.
Yeah, that's right.
That's the irony.
And for those people who don't know the end of the play, I don't know. Should we tell them? They may not see it because I don't think it'll be performed in Eugene soon. But she stabs him and she kills him.
Yes.
at the end of the play.
Yes.
And it's an interesting play, but
Yeah.
it's a play of the period, and it's,
And
you
it's
know,
about
part of the
some
Black arts
ironic
movement.
truths. you
That's
know?
right.
It really forced a lot of issues to the surface for people to deal with, to think about.
That's right.
And that was the message.
So let's watch that clip because
All right.
she's right there tempting him
I-
and taunting him.
Weren't you staring at me through the window?
What?
Weren't you staring at me through the window when I stopped?
Staring at you? What do you mean?
You know what staring means?
Yeah, well, I saw you through the window. That's what it means. I don't know if I was staring. Seems to me you were staring through the window at me.
I was. But only after I turned around. Saw you staring through that window down in the vicinity of my ass and leg. Huh?
Did you really?
Really? I guess you were just taking those idle pot shots, huh? Nothing else to do, run your mind over people's flesh.
Oh. Boy. Wow, well, I admit I was looking in your direction, but the rest of that weight is yours.
I suppose.
Staring through train windows is weird business. Much weirder than staring very sedately at abstract asses.
Well, that's why I came looking through the window. So you'd have more than that to go on. I even smiled at you.
Yeah, that's right.
I even got into this train going some other way than mine. Walked down the aisle searching you out.
Really? Well, well, that's pretty funny.
You're pretty funny. God, you're dull.
Oh, well, I'm sorry, lady, but I really wasn't prepared for Parnell.
No, you're not. What are you prepared for?
Well, I'm prepared for anything. How about you?
What do you think you're doing?
What?
You think I want to pick you up, get you to take me somewhere and screw me, huh?
Is that the way I look?
Look like you've been trying to grow a beard. Exactly what you look like. Look like you live in New Jersey with your parents. You're trying to grow a beard, that's what. Look like you've been reading Chinese poetry. Drinking lukewarm, sugarless tea. You look like death eating a soda cracker.
Really? I look like all that, huh?
Not all of it. I lie a lot. Helps me control the world.
Yeah, I bet.
Okay, so we move along.
All right.
I mean, that's pretty powerful, that Dutchman,
It is.
and I think
It's still played in places.
it's
There's some
very
avant-garde groups
yeah.
that still do it.
I think
Yeah.
mostly black theaters might
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
Colleges
Absolutely.
might do it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Can't do it.
it's probably not a real good staple of community theater,
Not at all.
but black
You
theaters.
might find it off Broadway revived at some
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think it's still relevant. I
Yes.
think it's still
Yes.
relevant, and in the face of what we've gone through today, that's still relevant.
Yeah.
So we move into later periods. We're talking about maybe the 70s and the 80s and even the 90s. And one of the plays that strikes me the most is Ntozake Shange's For Colored Girls Who've Considered Suicide When the Rainbow Is Enough.
Yeah. I had the fortunate experience of seeing that on Broadway,
Oh, wow.
and it was just beautiful. And at the time, it was so refreshing to see not just these were black women, but they were women. You know, I saw them as each individual one having their own personality, you know, their own struggles, and they happen to be black women.
Yeah,
You know,
but that rainbow kind of
Yes.
tells you the
Yes.
personalities, huh?
I was
That
really
rainbow, and they're all
really
dressed in
in
the
different
colors, you
Right.
know, lady in red, lady in white, lady in purple, lady in blue, lady in orange,
Exactly.
you know, and they each represent parts of the rainbow. Ntozake Shange was interviewed about that, and she said the title came to her. She admitted that she had tried to commit suicide 4 times
Really?
in her life, and
Didn't
that
realize that.
she was riding on Highway 1 in California
Yeah.
one
Beautiful
day, and
island.
she saw parallel rainbows.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she said she just knew she was just going to die. And it's interesting, she said, because she went through those rainbows, it seems like. She drove through those rainbows and came out on the other side, and she said
What an
she was still alive, you
what a
know.
metaphor.
And
That's
so it was an interesting way of saying, so the rainbow is going to save these
Yeah.
women. And what I like about that play is that, that play is about how these women have been discriminated against, and they have been discriminated against racially, but they have also been discriminated against sexually.
Yes.
And
Yes. 'Cause
so
so it wasn't
that's-
just a black, white, or a race kind of thing. It was about their struggles.
that's right. And
Individual
what's
struggle.
interesting about that play is that I think you could use other women of color who have gone through some of the same struggles.
Sure.
Because I don't think it's just a
Right.
I don't
Right,
think
right,
it's I don't
It's
think
about
it's
women.
just a black issue.
Sure. Sure.
And it's interesting because one of my friends who directed the play in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Now you would
No,
think,
yeah.
oh, where's he going to find enough black people, black women,
Find Native Americans.
to play those parts?
Yeah.
Well, he had a conversation, I was told, with Ntozake Shange and told her, you know, we want to do this play, but we don't have enough black women to do this play. And she said, you can cast it with Mexican women, you can cast it with Native American women. It doesn't matter, because she considered that her play was really about women, even
Yeah.
though she wrote it,
I got
with
that
black
feeling
women
from
in mind.
I definitely got that feeling from it.
Yeah, and you know what? And not only, you know, these women are not just mistreated by black men.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
they're mistreated by white men.
Sure.
They're mistreated
Sure. By men.
Hispanic men.
Yeah,
You know, so
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
There's a bigger message in there.
and what I like about the play, it's a choreographed type of poem
Yeah.
where the actors dance
Yes.
their parts.
Yes.
And I don't know, you know, there've been some television and even a movie version, and I just don't. They asked Ntozake Shange about the movie version that Tyler Perry did, and she said she wasn't quite so sure that it worked.
Yeah, I didn't
And
see that.
I think, well, what they did was they put in a lot of scenery, and you know, they tried to make this a lot more real, and I think she wanted her play to be more surreal.
The beautiful thing that I got from the production was the simplicity, the colors and the simplicity, and then you focused on the message that was being delivered. You know, the characterization, because each one would shift around and they would whirl around in these beautiful colors and dresses that would flow a little bit and then stop.
And it's basically, it's a poem.
Yes.
You know,
Yes,
it's a poem. It's poetry, and it's
You let the
poetry
message
that
come
really
loud and clear.
tells the story of the stories of these women. And so Yeah. So we're going to watch a section of that in a little while, but I want to move on because what we'll do is we'll watch two pieces, and the other piece is going to come from August Wilson.
Oh, good.
And
good,
so
good, good.
we'll go
Yeah.
ahead on and talk about August Wilson right now.
All right. All right. You want
Obviously,
Ma Rainey?
oh yeah. August Wilson has been called the theater's poet
Yes.
of Black America.
Yes.
And
And
you know,
so. Yeah.
he wrote this 10-play cycle,
Yes.
one that takes place in every decade
Every
of the
10
20th
years.
century.
Right.
And it's about African Americans in each of those decades
Yeah.
and what they had to face in each of those decades. And I think, but it wasn't just about the African American experience, but it's also about the human experience,
So, yeah.
the human condition.
Right. That African Americans had to struggle with or struggle through during those periods, the kind of things that they dealt with. And some of the plays, like Joe Turner, has very little to do, in my mind, with the African American experience so much. He expands it to something that's more symbolic, more surreal. You know, the supernatural.
Yeah, quite a bit of the supernatural in his plays. I'm thinking of The Gem of the Ocean,
Yes.
and I can't remember her name. The major woman character is 300 years old. You know, and we of course know nobody lives 300 years these days, you know, but
Can I tell you a little bit of a story
Sure.
of how he got started? Because we mentioned Lloyd Richards
Sure.
directing Raisin the Sun being the first director and so on. Lloyd was the artistic director not only at Yale, at the what's that, Yale Wharf?
Yale
Theater,
Repertory.
the Wharf Theater and so on. But he was also artistic director for the O'Neill Playwrights Conference, which was every summer. So,
Right.
I applied a couple of times there after August Wilson. August Wilson went, and that's where he developed his first play, Ma Rainey. And it's through the process, or Lloyd calls it a process, that the playwright goes through, and he has a program for them to follow. So it's a great little supportive way of developing your play. So in the dining room and so on, there's a lot of history of Lloyd and August Wilson. And Lloyd develops his plays, his first few plays, up to about 7 guitars before in my own interpretation, August is able to get his own wings and then go from there. But his first few plays was through that process of that Lloyd Richards had set down.
Yeah, I remember seeing pictures of James Earl Jones playing the lead in Fences at Yale Repertory.
Yeah.
And Lloyd Richards, of course, was directing that show, you know, and
It was a great collaboration.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
one of the best.
So we're going to watch a clip of Ma Rainey,
Okay.
and Ma Rainey, we know, was the legendary blues singer,
Right.
and she was just really good, powerful woman who had a mind of her own, and she helped a lot of white producers become quite lucrative because of her singing. She was very, very good.
It was during the time in history where Jim Crow and the Plessy Ferguson decision made that put all the whites only, black and white separation, and the Jim Crow laws and so on. So she came through that period where it was socially demanded.
That's right.
And so that, but she was, what I liked about her was her ability to resist. She was very firm about who she was and her talent and what the situation, what that racist situation was about. And she pushed it to its limit.
That's right.
In the end, she had to give in to it. but she pushed it to the limits.
That's right.
And got her way.
That's right.
You know, as best she could under those kind of restricted
Yeah.
Conditions.
And that play is really all about how much blacks could control their own destiny. You know, I mean,
Big message.
she she did not want the white producers to control her destiny,
Absolutely.
and so she fought back quite a lot.
Yep.
And fights back in the
Effective.
play.
She was effective
As a
with
matter of fact, to the extent that she had some real problems with her own band that was playing
Sure.
behind her, because they wanted to do what the white man wanted to do, but she was
No.
herself. She was her own self, and she wanted to be who she
controlled the
was.
way
You
she
know,
wanted.
that's right. So we're gonna look at a clip
Okay.
for colored girls.
Right.
First, and we'll see the
Okay.
women in their natural setting on the stage,
Mhm.
moving around and reciting their
It's poetry,
their
per se.
poetry. That's right. In the way that Ntozake Shange intended for that play to
That's
be
important.
presented. And
Yeah.
then we're going to watch a scene from Ma Rainey's Black Bottom,
Okay.
and you'll see how forceful Ma Rainey is,
Good.
and
Good,
how
good. So you'll
how much.
do one and then the next.
That's right.
Okay. Great,
Yeah,
great,
we'll
great.
do those two back to back,
Good.
and then we'll come back and we'll talk about now and start to close our conversation and talk about the state of black theater today.
Good, good, good.
Somebody, anybody, sing a black girl's song. Bring her out to know herself, to know you. But sing her rhythms, caring, struggle, hard times. Sing her song of life. She's been dead so long, closed in silence so long, she doesn't know the sound of her own voice. Her infinite beauty. She's half notes scattered without rhythm, no tune. Sing her sighs. Sing the song of her possibilities. Sing a righteous gospel. Let her be born. Let her be born and handled warmly.
Irvin, you better tell this man who I am. You better get him straight.
Pop, you know what time it is? Do you have any idea? We've been waiting.
If you was watching where you was going.
I was watching. What you mean?
What's going on here, officer? What's the matter?
Tell the man who he messing with.
Do you know this lady?
Just tell the man who I am. That's all you got to do.
Lady, will you let me talk?
Tell him who I am.
Wait a minute.
Tell him who he messing with.
Okay, just give me a chance. Officer, this is one of our recording artists, Ma Rainey.
Madame Rainey. Get it straight. Madame Rainey. Talking about taking me to jail.
Look, Ma, give me a chance, okay? Here, sit down. I'll handle it. Now, officer, what's the problem?
It's all your fault.
I ain't done nothing. Ask Mom.
When I walked up on the instant,
Sylvester wrecked Ma's car.
I did not. The man ran into me.
look, buddy, if you want it in a nutshell, we got her charged with assault and battery.
Assaulted what for what?
See, we was trying to get a cab.
Wait a minute. I'll tell you if you want to know what happened. Now, that's my nephew, Sylvester. He was driving my car down to...
Lady, we don't know whose car he was driving.
That's my car. That's my car.
car.
What you mean you don't know whose car it is? I bought and paid for that car. Registered to me, Gertrude Ma Rainey.
That's what you say, lady. We still got it checked. They hit a car on Market Street. The guy said the kid ran a stoplight.
Oh, what you mean? The man come around the corner and hit me.
Well, I was called in a paddy wagon to haul them to the station. They tried to hop into a parked cab. The cabbie said he was waiting on a fare.
That man was just sitting there, wasn't waiting for nobody. I don't know why he want to tell that lie.
Look, lady, will you let me tell the story?
Go ahead and tell it then, but tell it right.
So, pretty powerful pieces that for colored girls. Gosh, I have seen that play several times as well. I didn't see it in New York. but I did see it several times, and I directed this play. It was very, very interesting.
Yeah.
The Southern Writers Conference in Louisiana were meeting at a university close to where I was living, and I was teaching high school actually.
Okay.
And I got high school girls
No
to
kidding.
do clips from that play. I got permission to do that, and those high school, and it was interesting because, you know, as we know, that play is loaded with language and you know, but parents were okay. It was interesting. Black parents. I had all black girls, and the black parents were okay with their girls, high school girls, doing these roles. And I guess, you know, maybe some roles they didn't even understand, but that's a great play. And so, of course, it's Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, and we all know that because it became a hit on film recently, starring Viola Davis as Ma Rainey, and the other lead character was
the gentleman. It escapes my mind, but everybody knows it because he.
Chadwick Boseman. That's right, Chadwick Boseman. Anyway, so to wrap this up, today, of course, we know that there are more and more black theaters, and more black theaters are demanding that they be treated equally, you know, and you know, they've even published what we call a manifesto called "We See You White Theater." You can find that on the internet.
August Wilson.
That's right.
Started that whole movement.
That's right.
In '96.
August Wilson starts off with the ground on which we stand. That's right. And you know, and he talks about, you know, the state of black theater today. That's right.
The Lord Theater Organization
and
the Union Theater.
And what the black theaters are hoping is that we will see more black performers, more black theater professionals as gatekeepers, and you know, because they haven't been in a lot of places gatekeepers. We haven't seen a lot of black artistic directors in professional companies, especially, you know, when you look at Broadway and you look at look at the regional theaters.
You know, Stan, it comes down to economics again. I mean, they're afraid to buck the system. The people that were in that audience with August Wilson were the big donors. You know, were the people who donate money to nonprofits.
That's right.
And so August took a tremendous chance by biting the hand that was feeding, you know, at the time. But he wanted to say something that was real and honest and true. And so it's hard for, I'm not pleading a case for artistic directors who are black or not good gatekeepers, but that's the dilemma they find themselves in. The people who are giving the money to these union theaters across the country, the network of union theaters, the Goodman in Chicago, Princeton, there's the Carter, and so on. But the black theaters that are right alongside or in the same communities are not getting that same kind of support. And they will only get the same kind of support if in some way they please the donors.
Right, right. Yeah. And so theaters are now making demands. You know, you need to pay us like you pay everybody else. You need to cast us in more shows.
So
we need our playwrights need to be recognized. You know, it's okay to have black shows written by white playwrights, but in a lot of cases, you know, August Wilson said it himself that, you know, these playwrights don't even know much about black life and black culture. It's interesting. There was a lot of controversy about the play that seemingly was based on Lorraine Hansberry's play, Clyburn Park. And a lot of people thought Clyburn Park is a sequel to A Raisin in the Sun. And a lot of black theater people said, no, that's not, you know, and that this person does not even understand, you know, what what has happened for blacks in these neighborhoods, you know? And so, so
That's
they're
a
asking
controversial
more.
question
Yeah,
all along. You know?
they're asking
Yeah.
more black. Let's have more black playwrights who write, you know, what they know, write what they live, you know. And we haven't been getting a lot of that. And lately, there have been more plays about race. Thank goodness. Slave play, which, you know, I don't think we'll ever do in Eugene, but surely that's getting a lot of play in New York. And I don't know, you know, I guess some regional theaters are a little bit shy about putting that one on.
It's your audience again.
Because there's a lot of nudity and you know, a lot of sexual innuendos and you know, a lot of you know, just very overt kinds of sex acts. So it's a little bit chancy. But you know, more and more plays are coming out, especially in the wake of Black Lives Matter movement. You know, we're getting more and more of these plays happening.
But you know, at the same time that there's this restrictive side, there's a side where you see some of the areas opening up, and there's more black plays and more varied subjects and so on. So it's a hard one to call.
And we're lucky to be living in a place that you know, kind of values black contributions to the theater. You know, maybe not enough theaters in this town do that, but we're lucky at the Very Little Theater that we have Minority Voices Theater, and we have a patronage that appreciates putting other cultures on the stage, looking at other plays.
How many other theaters in town has an element like minority voices?
That's right.
As a major part of this program.
That's right.
And
That's
encouraging it, you know.
And of course, we're lucky to have Oregon Shakespeare Festival, which, of course, is very, very much
progressive,
very progressive, very diverse, very equitable with its members and cast and everything there. You know, I mean, it's wonderful what they're doing. And now they have an African American woman who is their artistic director.
Really?
You know? Oh yeah, Nataki Garrett is the artistic director of Oregon Shakespeare Festival. Yeah, you know, and you know, replacing whom? A white male.
Right.
You know? And so this is how diverse Oregon Shakespeare Festival is becoming.
That's great.
Yeah. And I think even more so, we used to love the Alabama Shakespeare Festival, but even, and you would think in the South, you know, of course they would sort of embrace, you know, a lot of blackness, but not like Oregon Shakespeare Festival. Okay,
I'm really pleased too. Now, just a word about the Very Little and how open and how inviting. And,
Very much.
How much I was so pleased. I felt like home. You know, this is home. The membership,
Very
we're a big
much so.
family. We're just one family.
Very much so. Very much so. Very, very, very open. We have in the Very Little Theater, they're
Really
very,
fortunate
very
for
open. And we're very fortunate. You're absolutely right, you know. Okay, well, that kind of ends our conversation. Thank you, Hershell, for
thank you, Stan,
engaging with me in this process. And thanks to all of you who are listening. We thank you, Jessica, for putting this all together. And thanks to the Very Little Theater for including us in this this anniversary presentation that they have. Yeah, happy 93rd. And hopefully you all know something now about Black theater in America.